Hey everyone, it's Bethany. Welcome back. In this video, I am very excited to say I'm going to be finishing up my Candy Cane Lane bench pillow. It was one of my goals for this year. I'm excited to get it done and off of my list. So I've always been saving it for the Christmas season, only to realize I do not have time during the Christmas season to get a project like this done. So I've been working on it throughout this winter season. In fact, it's snowing right now, so I'm really excited about that. Well, I guess it stopped snowing, but there's snow on the ground. So I'm feeling in the mood to get this finished today. So I have some of my quilt blocks all done and sewn together. And then I have a couple that haven't been sewn together yet. There's the hot cocoa stand, and then we have our red house. I love the glittery element of the snow and the candy cane. It's just so pretty. So we are going to do the Christmas tree quilt block today. I'm excited because it has a puff element that I'm excited to do. I haven't done it yet, but I know it's going to turn out really pretty. So we're going to go ahead and prep all of our material, and then I'm going to get all of this finished up so that I can cross this off my list, and in 10 months I can enjoy this project. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Go ahead and give this a thumbs up if you're ready to see this all done, and let's go ahead and start on this little quilt block. Also, everything that I'm using will be linked down below. Be sure to click on the title of the video, and then all of the materials will be in list form below. Okay, really quickly before we get started, I'm going to go ahead and grab my materials. I have them in the Christmas tree pocket here. And then I'm going to locate the fabric pieces. So these are the fabric pieces. This is that puffy element. And again, I bought the embellishment kit, so it came in that, but I'm excited because this is going to make our tree have a fun puffy look to it. Then we have cork. Now we are going to not put anything on the back of these, so I'm going to set those two pieces to the side. However, I have some additional fabric pieces that I need to add my fusible backing to. So let me go ahead and I'll measure my backing and iron it onto the back. So let me straighten this piece out. Now this big piece is going to be our actual background piece. I love the fabric choice they picked out for this. It reminds me of fallen snow. Now I'm going to be, this is the back side right here. The back side is face up, and I'm going to iron my fusible backing onto the wrong side of the fabric. I also have some strips. I always keep my extras rolled up with my material here so that I can use those for my smaller pieces, and it's probably going to work perfectly for these. Okay, so let me measure out some. It does not need to be the exact same size. It just has to be close. So I usually do about 1/4 of an inch, give or take, of course, smaller than my fabric. Trim this down. Okay. And this just helps reduce puckering. I swear by this. I started doing this when I started doing in the hoop quilting projects, and I did it because they recommended it, and I will never not use it. It is so wonderful. Okay, and don't worry that it's all messy. It's just to provide some structure and help it not pucker. So we are good to go. Okay, so ironing that down. Now, I will say that the fusible backing, it has an adhesive on one side. So you're gonna wanna put that adhesive side down so that it irons right on. It'll stick together. Okay, so this piece is all done and ready to go. Now, I said last time too that I recommend that you do all of this at once. Just get all of your backing placed down at once. That way, once your machine starts going, you have everything you need all prepped and ready. That way you're not waiting and having to do this in the meantime. Okay, let's see. Those pieces actually might be big enough because these are just applique pieces. So that's actually probably big enough for this project. Okay, and then we have this little guy. And then the rest of them, I will once again just place back on my roll. I can always use these tiny pieces. Okay, those should be plenty big. And you'll see why in a little bit, why I'm not having them span the whole thing, because it's going to be our applique pieces. So we're going to be doing a lot of trimming on these. Okay, once these are done, I will set these to the side And then we are all ready to go. So I have my design all loaded on my embroidery machine. We're going to be using my flatbed because it has a bigger hoop. It's my new machine. I'm loving it so much. And we're all ready to go. I also have already hooped my stabilizer. So if you want to watch me do all of that, I try to save time this time around, but I'll link a previous video where we were working on this project, and I will show you how I am doing all of the beginning stuff. So saving time so that we can just zoom through this, but here's all of my pieces. We're ready to go. I am simply going to start off by, we're going to put our quilt backing on the back. So what we're going to do is we're going to stitch the placement stitch first, then we're going to do our quilt material on there, then we'll do a placement stitch and place this down. I did keep a red thread in there so you can see fairly well what we're going to be doing. I will change it out once we start working on this, just so I don't have any hint of red on there. And let's go ahead and get started. All right, so now we have our batting all secured, and this is wonderful because now we'll have our batting all completed. Now we can do our quilting part. So there's no need to further quilt this project because we're going to be doing all of our quilting in the hoop before we stitch out each quilt block design. All right, let's go ahead and trim this all down. I'm going to go ahead and next change my thread to a silver that I've been using for my background quilting. So what's going to happen next is I'm going to stitch out the placement stitch for my next piece, which is our background fabric, which again was that nice gray piece. And then it's going to stitch out the tack down stitch next to make sure that that piece is nice and secure. And what's nice about that is it's going to do it about a 1/4 of an inch outside or bigger than our batting, so that when we go to sew our pieces together, we don't have any batting in the seams, which is wonderful. It sews together just beautifully. So then after that, I'm going to go ahead and allow it to do the background quilting. So let's go ahead and let all of that play out, and then we'll start the Christmas tree. Okay, so there is the background quilting. I wanted to give you a good look at that before we begin our next step. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and stitch out the placement line for our flexi foam. And again, our flexi foam is this piece here, and it has a nice thick element to it. So this is going to go underneath our fabric. So again, we're going to do a placement stitch. It's going to be in the outline of a tree. Once that has stitched out, I'm going to place this over the placement stitch and then do the tack down stitch before we trim it out. All right, so I did secure that with some of this Kimberbell embroidery tape. I had some in my Bella box, so I went ahead and put that in there. You can also use medical tape just something that's nice and low tack, and it just tacked it down for a little bit until the stitching was on there so it wouldn't move. Okay, so now we're going to take our little snips and go around, and just like we would applique, ooh, this is some thick stuff, we are going to just trim, oops, being careful not to get my stitches. If you do, it's not the end of the world because there's another step on this. Ooh, but I am getting some stitches. I need to go a little bit further than that. Okay, this is my first time with the flexi foam, so, oh, there we go, I'm doing much better now. It's a little bit of a learning curve. So I'm going all the way around and I'm just trimming out everything outside of the Christmas tree, all this extra material. And I said in my last video when I was starting this project that I went ahead and bought the fabric kit and I bought the embellishment kit for this project. And when you do so, then all of your fabric is ready to go. Now, it's all put together, but it's not trimmed down. So they give you the cut instructions at the beginning of your guide to this project, and they'll tell you all of the dimensions that you need to have prepped and ready and on which material you need to cut it down. And that's why I did that pre-work and put it all in those pink envelopes. That way when I had a moment to go ahead and stitch out a block, I had all of my materials all ready to go. So it's another thing that I highly recommend you do if you start a project like this, is take the time. Usually takes about an hour or so, but take the time, put on a show, and get all of your fabric cut. And again, then what I did is I just put all of my fabric for each quilt block in these little envelopes, and then they're all ready to go. So it just is one of those things that helps you save time. Plus, when you're in one frame of mind, it's easiest just to do it all. So if you're in the cutting frame of mind, just get all your cutting done. And if you're in the, fusible backing frame of mind, do all of that at the same time as well, which I might do for my next project, is get all of my fusible backing all ironed on beforehand as well. But that's something that's pretty quick that I can do once I start. Okay, just giving it a quick little turn. We have this last little bit. Now the next thing that's going to happen is we're going to go ahead and stitch out the placement stitch for the trunk, and then we're going to place the cork down over that and do the tack down stitch. So we'll get the tree trunk done, and then I think it's even going to do the satin stitch after that. So the tree trunk is going to be completed all within the next couple of steps. All right, so there is the tree trunk with the satin stitch all finished. So that portion is complete. The next step we are going to do is do the placement stitch down in this lower quarter of the tree. And it's going to show us where we want to put our first piece of fabric down. So I'm going to go ahead and stitch out the placement stitch, place my fabric over that placement stitch, and stitch out the tack down stitch as well. Before I place my fabric over that though, I wanted to show you that the tack down stitch, it is outside of the flexi foam area, a good 1/8 of an inch. So if you do accidentally trim your stitches for your flexi foam, please don't worry, it's going to be fine. Just try not to do it too often. But like I said, when I first started, I was kind of getting that a little bit snipped there. But that next stitch is outside of that, giving that some plenty of room. So we're gonna be okay. Now, what I'm gonna do next is just, again, place my first piece of fabric right on over that. I will go ahead and actually tape this down just to be extra cautious. And then we will do our tack down stitch and then trim. Okay, so I went ahead and lift that stitch out. and do the tack down stitch. And now I'm going to just trim that applique. And then the next step, so this is why I wasn't worried about that fusible backing being entirely large, because it's just using a lot of the inside of that fabric. So smaller pieces are a-okay. Okay, let me go ahead and trim this out. Let me know what projects you are working on. If you are doing any embroidery projects or in the hoop projects. I love hearing what everybody else has going on their machine. I have quite the lineup of things I want to accomplish this year, so I am finding that completing this one is just gonna get me really fired up to keep going. I was looking at my drawer the other day. I have a drawer of unfinished projects, and it's always been so intimidating to me, but I'm looking at it with a fresh pair of eyes, and I think it's gonna be doable this year. That's why, though, I will say I'm not going to stitch out every single quilt block or every single part of my projects on camera, because it honestly takes me twice as long to do so when I'm filming. So I like to share as much as I can, but I try to do a lot behind the scenes as well, not only to save a little bit of time, but it's also a nice way for me to just unwind and relax and be still. So that's why you're not going to see every single part of every project, because there's just not enough time on the clock for it. Okay, now it's going to do the, oh, that's so pretty. And it's got that puff element, which is just gorgeous. Now it's going to go ahead and stitch the decorative stitch next. So the next thing that we're gonna do is we're just gonna keep going up the tree. We're gonna be doing our decorative stitch, then we'll move on to this section, and this section. I believe it's pretty lather, rinse, repeat. So I am just gonna go ahead and zoom through the rest of this. We'll put it on fast forward, and I'll go ahead and finish it up for us. And let's go ahead and watch this all play out and come together. Okay, oh my goodness, I am in love with this. The moment that I saw this particular quilt block, I knew, as I was kind of deciding which ones that I wanted to film versus do on my own, I knew I wanted to do this one for you guys because it's just so neat. I really wanted to showcase this fun puff look. It's really neat. Okay, so let's talk about how much is left. So as you can see, it was lather, rinse, repeat on those steps up the tree. So we're gonna do the finishing stitch, which, can we just talk about that finishing stitch for a minute? Isn't it so pretty? I am in love with it. We're gonna do the finishing stitch. Then we are going to change out our thread and we are going to stitch the little eyelets for the twinkle lights if you wanna add your twinkle lights to your final pillow. And then the last two steps are we're gonna stitch some snowflakes and also some little snow embellishments on the tree. So I'm gonna go ahead and take this right back on over there. Finish this trim real quick, and we're going to do those final three steps. So again, light eyelets, snowflakes, and some snow embellishments. Okay, so we are all done. We have the little embellishments, we have the eyelets for our tree lights, and then we have an additional 3 snowflakes on the background there. Okay, so now I am completely done, so I can remove this from my hoop, and now I'm going to cut out my quilt block. So I have my orange pop ruler here, and it calls for the 6.5 by 8.5. I'm going to line that up right where I'd like it. And we are going to have a snow drift on our final piece that covers up that bottom, so that's okay that that's not down there. Okay, once I have that lined up, I'm going to take my rotary blade. I like to press outwards towards the edge to make sure I get a nice straight cut. So pushing out, okay, and then side, and finally the bottom. Okay, so there is the final quilt block. I love this. It's so pretty. Whoops, I got a little snag on there. Let me grab that. I love this so much because that, what did they call it? What was it? Puff foam, or I can't remember. I said it at the beginning of the video, but look at the difference that makes. It's nice and puffy, and it just creates some really fun dimension. So that turned out beautiful. I love that. All right, sewing is something that absolutely stresses me out. And because I want to enjoy this experience, I'm not going to film it. So I'm gonna go ahead and start sewing together all my quilt blocks and all of my finishing touches. And then I'm gonna get this all finished up. Okay, it's all done. I am so thrilled with how this turned out. And actually, all of the sewing was not as hard as I thought it would be. I did get a new sewing machine within the last couple of years, solely so I could do bulkier projects like this. And I will say that my sewing machine was a MVP for this project. I love my sewing machine. So I'll link it down below in case you are in the market for a new one. And I am just excited about how this all turned out. So I will say I did go ahead and not put the fairy lights in just yet, just because I wasn't quite sure if I wanted to add them yet. And then the other thing that I decided to omit was all of the little buttons. I just felt for me, me that the buttons weren't as timeless as the rest of the piece, and we all like to just make our projects fit our style the best. So for me, not putting the buttons on was something that just took on a little bit more of my style. So I wanted to keep it really simple and timeless, so I decided not to do that part. Now that I'm done with this, I feel like that drawer of unfinished projects is looking a little bit more approachable, so I'm excited to get tackling on those this year. One project done and a few more to go. It's gonna be really fun. And because I'm feeling much more comfortable with my sewing now, I probably will film that in the future. But for this first one, I just wanted to sit back and relax and take my time because I've wanted to do this for so long. I wanted it to turn out just perfectly. So I am so excited with how everything turned out. I hope you enjoyed watching this all come together, and I really am looking forward to being able to enjoy this in the next 10 months when Christmas rolls around. This project was just so fun to do, and some of my favorite parts included that puffed tree that we did in this video. It turned out beautiful, and then I added a velvet bow right to the top as the instructions asked. And then another thing that I loved were the lamp posts on either side. They had a really fun textured wreath that you use water-soluble bobbin thread in order to accomplish, and it was really, really a fun thing to try for the first time. So I hope you enjoyed watching this just as much as I enjoyed putting this together. I'm excited to tackle the rest of my projects this year so that I can start enjoying some of these projects instead of having them sit in the drawer. So here's to a year of creating so many things on my embroidery machine, and I'll see you all in the next video.